Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihi amma ba'du. I greet you all with the greeting, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our Thursday evening presentation. And we're making this presentation to the Mali students specifically. We will share with others later. We're looking at chapter 16, verse 48. And hopefully you all will take notes to ask questions on Tuesdays. We have time for Tuesdays for asking questions, certain points I may bring out to you to discuss on Tuesday. Today we're going to be looking at Ibn Arabi. As I'm looking at Ibn Arabi, still keeping with the idea of comparing the minds of Ibn Arabi and Imam W.D. Muhammad, I'm going to be expressing ideas that comes from W.D. Muhammad as I am commenting and translating and commenting from Ibn Arabi. And this helps us, though it's a special interest that I have, this helps us see how Arabic is defining Arabic. And because this is a teaching moment, it's not where I would consider myself making a presentation, a public presentation, because there's a lot more that can be said than I'm going to say here, especially on this subject. And by it being a teaching moment, some things that came out last Saturday, maybe I'll point them out to you all tonight, that you can begin to see how to read tafsirs in Arabic, starting with King Fahd. How to read King Fahd, the way I'm showing in the class, and then I want you to see, just watch, don't make judgments, don't agree or disagree, see what I'm going to show you. It'll be on a recording, if you want to go back and listen to the recording. And the sheet will also be on the site, recording and the sheet. Then you can go back and listen for questions you may have, agreements, disagreements, what have you, judgments. So that's how I will kind of approach it today. And I didn't want to get into too much because I don't want to drag it out and take too much time. So with that, we're looking at chapter 16, verse 48. So we're going through chapter 16. So we're on 16:48, and it's not every verse, but if you take the verses we're given, read what's in between the verses, you get a good conception of chapter 16. So it begins reading, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Awalam Yarao Ila ma khalaqallahu min shay'in. This is asking a question here. This Hamza here is asking a question. This where is coming after as a conjunction. And then you have lam, a particle of the jessup that negating from the time we're speaking into the past. So we would say, did they not see? And you could say, and if you want to say, and did they not see? Did they not look? Did they not see? Ila yarao ila, did not see ma khalaqa Allahu. What? This ends in Dhamma. Now, to show you all, that's in the class now, except for the class just began. The marks in the Quran is already here for you. In the tafsir, the marks are not there. I put the marks for you. I put the marks on the tafsir, the vowel marks on the Quran, they're already there. So it's easy for you to see. Once you get drilled reading grammatically correct without the vowel marks, especially ending on the nouns, then you go back to the Quran, it will be easier for you because the vowel marks are already there. So you see the Dhamma, you don't have to pause and see if it's a Dhamma or a Fata. It's a Dhamma, so a verb came before it. Your mind go to the sheet. That's why I'm trying to really drill you on the sheets. My mind goes to the sheet right away. This would be the subject of the verb. Let me translate it as such and see if it makes sense. What Allah created makes sense. Did they not look? Have they not seen? Elad doesn't necessarily have to be translated. You can, but it doesn't have to be to make sense in English. Do not look towards. Do not look at. It's a preposition. Doesn't have meaning until used with other words. So pick a word here, use it with the other words. You don't spend a lot of time on particles. Just know their function. This elad is going to be a preposition. This man is going to be functioning as a noun. I've said a preposition. That's grammar. How you translate it, you have to just give it translating with the meaning of the words. Don't spend a lot of time on this translation. But the key words is Yarao, Halaka, Allahu. So it's asking, did you not see, did you not look at what Allah created, min shay'in, of a thing, from a thing? He created a thing, anything. Min shay'in is anything, not L-shape, just shaping, anything. Have you looked at anything Allah created? Yatafawayahu, it turns. The laluhu, the Dhamma is already here, so I'm going to say the subject first, and then I'm going to say the verb. Once again, you have a noun with a Dhamma, and a verb came before it. So I'm going to say the laluhu, it shadows. It shadows, yatafayahu, its shadow turns. It turns, its shadow turns on el yamini, on his left, on his right, washima'ili, and on his left. The shadows are turning. They're turning between the left and the right. Sujadan, we would say prostrating. That's the first word you may see. When you say sujadan, you may see prostrating. In the meaning, it may be in submission. Submission lillahi, to Allah, wa hum dakhirun. So dakhirun is helping us understand sujadan. Or the whole, if we put what we have said in the whole verse, dakhiran, another word for submission. They are submitting. They are submitting. They are always submitting. These shadows. The shadows are submitting. They're going from left to right. And going from left to right, they are submitting to Allah. Now, let's take a look at the verse, commenting on the verse. The first part, we're saying, okay, let me show this in terms of teaching, not just lecturing or motivational speaking, but teaching now. So you take the first part here of the verse. This first part, they have the bracket here. So this bracket here is up here. Now this is something that King Fahd doesn't do. He doesn't bracket it off as he speaks to the verses. So up to here, same words. So he put it in a bracket. This is what he's going to be speaking on from the Quran. What's in the bracket? Everything he's going to be speaking on is from this bracket until we get to the next bracket. So, أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَّا مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. Up to this. This is what he's commenting on. That is to say, ذَاتٍ وَحَقِيقَةٍ. So, مَخْلُوقَةٍ. Up to the comma. Just take that part. And that's enough to begin reflecting when you're reading Ibn Arabi. You may have, like someone mentioned, you know, you can see the words, but what is he talking about? What is he saying? You know the word Zatin. You look it up. Zatin. You know the word Hakika. You see the word Hak in it. Hakun. So you have an idea it has something to do with truth. Truth, reality, rights. Makhluqa, you see the word Khalaqa. It's in the passive, form one passive, in the feminine, because it's going to be describing Hakika. So it's something that's created. You just make it passive. Created. Khalaqa is create. Khalaqa is create. Makhluqan is that which is created. So now, he's talking about something here in this bracket. Zatin. Zatin is the existence, the being. The being, existence, the thing itself. Wa hakikatin is its true reality. You would say, so he's talking about what? He's talking about shay'in. He's talking about something. He's from something. He's not, Allah created from a thing. He created from a thing. This thing he created from is that. He created from that. From the being, the abstract thing, the spiritual thing. That's the that. Your true self-existence. And it's hakikatin makhluqatin. It's a created reality. So we can say your true created reality. He created from that thing. From that thing. Ayatu that whatever thing. Whatever thing, not being, but whatever entity, whatever being, whatever existence, true existence, cannot man el makhluqati. It is from that which is created. Is created. So before we get to the material manifestation of anything, there's already something that is created from. The material thing comes later as we reflect upon this. That have you not seen, have you not looked to what Allah created from something? So you see the things, materially we see it, but you don't see that there's something else functioning, that there's something else that thing is created from. This is what he's saying. Going back, looking at this. So he's giving you the tafsir on min shay'in in this part. Now we come to another bracket. We come to another bracket. Now, let's say before we get to this bracket, then now if I want to make a comment based upon the logic of Imam W.D. Muhammad, not quoting Imam W.D. Muhammad, but from the logic of Imam W.D. Muhammad. So those of you who have experienced, not studied, who have just experienced Imam W.D. Muhammad, and most of you have that's listening, then you would recognize the logic. You would recognize it. Those who study, there's a difference between those who study. See, I didn't experience Ibn Arabi. I'm studying Ibn Arabi. I didn't have the experience. I was not there at the time to experience him. With Imam W.D. Muhammad, we have experienced him, and maybe a few have actually studied. So we're doing that now. We're studying Imam W.D. Muhammad along with another text, the text of Ibn Arabi. So So from that logic, we could say that the spiritual thing precedes the material thing. The spiritual precedes the material because the material is created from the spiritual. And our true created reality is not material. It's not the material thing you're looking at. It's a material reality, but it's not what we would call in the science here. In this science, it's not my true reality. As a person may say, you say, I've been knowing him for 30 years, and he will say to you, you don't know me. He's talking about you don't know my true reality. You've just seen me. You've just seen this physical part of me. You've seen me doing actions, but it doesn't really define me. That's what they would be saying. Okay, so I'm just showing the difference between the two. So then the next bracket is Yatafaya'u Dilaluhu. Now, as we're going from bracket to bracket and reading it, you have to connect it. Connect one thing he's saying to the next thing he's saying. So he's going to comment on this part only up here. So he's going right in the order of the verse, the same as King Fahd does, but it's a little different how they do it. So everything he says until we get to the next bracket is going to be about Yatafaya'u Dilaluhu. We have some idea of what he's talking about because we say it's shadows. From that thing, it's shadows. It's shadows, they turn. The shadows turn. So he says, that is to say, Yatajassadu wa yatamathalu hayakiluhu wa suwaruhu. So now, he's talking about you don't have two words here. So he's talking about what's in the bracket. Now he's not going to say they turn. He may not say the shadows turn in other words. That would be more like King Fahd, a little more simpler. The text here may be a more simpler to read than this one. So Yatajasadu is to materialize. It materializes. Yatamatalu, it represents. You can see the word mathalat. Mathalat is jasadat is, if you know the word body, the material body. And the word mathalat, you can see in that word, mathalat, like an example, a symbol, something a symbol, a facsimile. This is mathalu. So I take these now, I'm going to put them in form 5. So if I say if I put in yatajasadu, make it a verb now, it's going to move. It's a body, now there's movement in it, but the movement occurs from within form 5. It's reflexive and it's done with its intensity. And this one's in form 5, so it occurs from within. So it materializes. If we follow the logic now, the spiritual thing begins to materialize and represent. With the two verbs here, we're talking about here. It's telling us about what this is saying. Hayakiluhu. Now we have a dhamma. We have a noun now following the verb with a dhamma, following two verbs with a dhamma. So now it's going to be the subject of the verb. So now we're going to say, instead of it does it, he or it now will tell us who actually does it. Hayakiluhu, it's bodies, it's skeletons. the skeletons or the bodies. Where? Suweruhu and its forms. So the body or the skeleton. Now we know, we said here, we know the word shadow. So now this must be the shadows. And when we say yatafaya'u, this verb must be defining this verb. Tell us what this verb is. So the shadows turning, he said, it's skeletons. It's skeletons or it's forms. That's what the shadows are the skeleton, the body, the form, the body form. And it materializes. It's representing, meaning the idea of turning, it materializes or representing what occurs from within. So if the spiritual body is turning, the physical body is representing and materializing and representing what's occurring inside. That's why the person will say, yes, I know you, I've seen your actions. Yes. Stay with it now. So up to that point, he's showing that. You see, first I'm reading what he's saying, then I reflect. How can I reflect? And what I'm giving you from the reflection, of course, I've gotten it from Imam W. Muhammad, no matter how simple or easy it may sound. If I had not come in contact with Imam W. Muhammad, if I not have experienced him, and if I've not read books on philosophy and what have you, then I wouldn't be able to say what I'm saying so easily. But that comes through study, but also I can relate it to him. I'm kind of taking the mystery out of Imam Muhammad because a lot of us see him, he becomes so mystified as though he say things nobody else have ever said ever. It doesn't work like that. Even he doesn't say that. So I'm reflecting on him in my experience as I'm reading Ibn Arabi. Now he's continuing, he's still talking about the shadows as he continues with the next. We read up to this comma, then we go up to the next comma. We're going to go up to this comma. We're going to start here, we'll go to the comma. Now it's a little longer, so it may take it in pieces as we go. But still, as you're reading, go back up here. You read, go back up. He says, فَإِنَّ لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ, is surely for everything. For everything. We talked about thing up here. We were talking about thing, right? Everything. And that thing is the spiritual thing. Hakikatan is for everything, or even every material thing, there's a hakika, there's a true reality. Hakikatan. Surely a true reality. I put this Tanween Fatah. Someone may read it with Tanween Dhamma. It's okay. So in Hakikatan, so surely, we would say surely is just the noun of Ina. Surely a true reality is for everything. So everything has a true reality. What you're seeing is not its true reality. And that true reality, he's saying, so what is this? What is this true reality? What is this thing? It's the shadow. So every shadow, let's go back here. So every shadow, everything that has been given bodily form, that has materialized into something material, that we would call a skeleton, is formed like a shadow. You know what a shadow is? A shadow. It shows you your form. The shadow don't show you everything, but it shows you your form. So that's what we're saying here. It's like a silhouette of you. So for every shadow, For every shadow, there is a true reality. I'm sure you get it. If I just go back here, because the shadow is not the true thing itself. It's a thing, but it's not the true thing. Hiya, malakutu. The true reality thing, it is the malakutu dhalika. Dhalika ashay'i. It is the governing. It's the governance of that thing. It's the true kingdom of that thing. This is a term that's in the Bible. The Christians say it all the time. Malakut, thy kingdom. Thy kingdom come, and it's Jesus who has said, the kingdom is within. Something to that effect. The kingdom is within you. The kingdom is not the skeleton. The kingdom is not the shadow. Everything that you see is a shadow. No. The true kingdom is not the shadow, it's the thing the shadow represents. So it's the malakutu dhalika shay. It's the governance of that thing. So this shadow is representing something else, and what it represents is being governed by that thing. Well, asluhu alladhi huwa bihi, meaning its origin is by it. Meaning the origin of the shadow is by the thing, the true thing that's represented. Huwa kama qala ta'ala. It is as, now he's going to give another part of the Quran to speak to what he's saying. Huwa kama qala ta'ala biyadihi malakutu kulli shay. By his hand, malakutu. Malakutu is the governance of everything. Yes. So everything created that we see in the material world is only a shadow of the true reality of that which it represents. That's what we're saying up to this part. And for every shadow, there's a true reality. And the true reality is what governs it. Okay? So, reflecting on the Imam now. If I take my hand, my arm, and I move my arm, I clap my hands together. There's something spiritual that's occurring even before I put my hands together. Something spiritual occurs, and it's moving the hands. The spiritual moves the material. If you were to cut my arm off, I would still be clapping my hands. But you won't see me clapping my hand because the thing that represents the shadow is gone. But I'm still clapping my hands. You can cut both arms off, and I'm still clapping my hands. But the manifestation of them being clapping, you cannot see materially because the material thing is gone, but the spiritual thing is not gone. It's still there. وَذِلَالُهُ, now let's see, we're still on the bracket. We're still talking about shadow. See, we haven't left it yet. Let me take my time and show you. He's still talking about this bracket. We're still on this bracket from the Quran. We don't go to the next bracket. We stay focused on this. So now he's going to say, وَذِلَالُهُ هُوَ. Now he's going to give us what, he put the colon here. He's going to tell us what shadow is. Here he's telling us about shadows and the relationship between the shadow and the true reality, the true thing. But now he's going to talk about what the shadow is. When he says his shadow is sifatuhu, his description. Or if we reflect on the Imam, his concept. The shadow is a concept of yourself. Sifa. It's describing you in form. Where madharuhu, and its manifestation, its appearance. Its appearance or its description of the thing it represents. I dare to say, Jasaduhu. I have some typos. When going over this, if you all see typos, it's not even Arabic, it's me with the vowel marks. I didn't change his letters, but I think the word is Jasaduhu. Not Jasi, Jasad. So I still have to improve my Arabic typing. Perhaps English typing also. Okay, so let's say it's his body. When we say his sifa, his madharu is his body. Alladhi, which bihi yadharu dhalika ashay'u, which by it that thing becomes visible. The thing becomes visible. That thing we're talking about, that spiritual thing, that abstract thing, that invisible thing, that it's really, it says, it's created from that thing. So it becomes visible. A lot can be said on the shadow from other verses of the Quran and from writings of the Imam. Well, like I said, I'm trying to keep within a time frame here, but it will go into a lot of it. If I make a public address at any time, given a time to make a public address, then I can bring this up and then show where I see it at, where I see to take these philosophical ideas and then show where I see it at in our life, right here in America, 2023. But I'm not going to take the time to do that. I know last year I was saying maybe I could turn one of these surahs into a Ramadan session. We did one surah on, I think I did a whole surah with you. On Furqan. So we could do a whole Ramadan session for the month on Furqan. We can do a Ramadan session for the month on this surah. And this will take time. On what we're talking about now could take a couple of days during Ramadan. Just this verse. Connecting with other verses. Yes, the more you read the Quran, the more you're reading it and reflecting from the Arabic text and the words, you start seeing these words. You start getting concepts of these words. You start reading other Arabic that's defining Arabic like we're doing now. It starts bringing about a wholeness of the language of Quran you start seeing coming together. Then, as you're talking, and this is from the experiencing this with the Imam, watching him do it, as you're talking, you start making the connections. But he was so good at it. He was so good at it that when he's talking, he's making these Quranic connections as he's going, connecting and connecting. So I see how he did it. It would take me time. Of course, I would need notes and all, but the feeling is there. But I can't do it right now. So if you come to class and ask questions, and then we could go to certain places with the shadow, with the idea of the shadow, and what we're talking now. So mark that down. Let's talk about the shadows. And the shadows are black. Shadows are black. Shadows don't come in color. They're black. Write that as a note. What we're talking about now is shadows being black. Okay. Now let's continue to the next part. So the next part of the verse we're going to go with, we're finished with shadows now. But we're going to be connecting. He's connecting as he's going. Well, if you want to break it up and to understand what he's saying, stick with the brackets. So now he's going to go to Anil Yamini wa Anil Shama'ili. So we take these two together. He's going to be talking about the right and the left. That's the next part. We go back up to the verse, and you see he's going to be talking about, always look to see where he's at. Right here. This is where he's at. This is where he's at. Now, sometimes he may not comment on the whole verse. He may not take each piece like he's doing here. He's taking each piece. He may not do that. He may do the first part. As you see, sometimes I present maybe just the first part. Sometimes I won't do the whole verse if he does it. So look to see where he's at. Pause and reflect. Always give yourself time to reflect. Don't try to speed read Quran when you're studying Quran. You can't speed read it. It's too much. Okay, now, he's saying here, Anil Yamini, Anil wa an Shama'ili. This is the word, this is not which. This is that is to say. You're going to find it a lot in tafsir literature. That is to say, an jihati khayri wa sharri. He says, on from the direction, you could say direction or the side. This is in the Surah Kaf. He talks about the dwellers of the cave and the sun coming by, moving from the left and the right, and they're turning on their sides. The sides of good, or the direction of good, and the direction of, if we want to say evil, harm or evil, harm. Good was harmful. Now, we pause. Now we're going to pause. And I'm going to reflect upon what do we hear, and then let's reflect upon the logic of Imam W. Muhammad. It would take a lot to put the Imam in Arabic for all of this because it's in different places. So I didn't do it like I would normally do. So now you hear people saying that here, if you read this, you may get the idea that the right is good and the left is harmful. The good, the evil. You could say the right is the good hand and the left hand is the bad hand. So that's why we shake with the right hand, because the left hand I've been doing dirty things. It's sharp. But that's not what he's not saying that. I can't say Ibn Arabi is saying that. But you can see how that somehow, somewhere has crept into the thinking of many Muslims. The left right hand and the left hand. Eat with your right hand because the left hand is dirty. Put the left hand away. Shake with the right hand. Do things with the right. Now with the left. That's what you hear. Now let's reflect on Imam W.D. Muhammad as we're reading Ibn Arabi. So the right is the conscience. The right is the conscience, and the left is we could say subconscious. Now let's go back so we can keep the thought together. We're talking about Mishay'in. We're talking about the shadow, the body, and then we're talking about the true reality. So the true reality governs the body. And it governs the body consciously. It governs the body in terms of from both sides. It governs the body in its good, and it governs the body in its harm, in its wrong, in its evil. The conscience does that. That's the conscience. The right is your conscious side. The things that you do consciously. Reasoning comes into the picture. Now, we talked about hearing the caller without evidence. You may do things without evidence. That's not the right side. If you don't have the evidence, you're not acting. Your movement is not coming from the right. If you don't have evidence, if you don't have knowledge, if you don't have the reasoning, then your movement perhaps is coming from the left, not from the right. But when you have evidence, when you have knowledge, when you have science, then your movement is coming from the right side. We say the conscious side. You are aware, you are conscious, you're making intentions. When you make an intention before you do something, that means you're conscious of what you're doing. You're conscious of what you're doing. You're conscious of what you want the outcome to be. But let me throw this in while it's on my mind so I won't forget. Even on the right side, when we're talking about the thing, the spiritual thing, on the right side, the conscience, the right and the left is operating. Yes, from that perspective. Like, for example, intuition. Intuition is not something that you can consciously, you don't consciously think about, you don't consciously bring about, but it's operating. Things that have the subconscious, you're not consciously aware of it. So that's the left side. The intuition is from the left side. But those things that you're consciously doing, acting upon, that's from the right side. So when you do something, you go to court. Now, all of this is from the logic of Imam W.D. Muhammad. When you go to court and you go before the judge, which is in a malakut, he's the governor now. He's judging. He wants to know if your act was a conscious act. Was it from the right side? Even though your act is wrong, your act is against the law, you still go before the judge. Because even though the act is an evil act you have committed, it could have been from the left side. If it's from the left side, then the judge may not, the penalty may not be harsh at all. But if it's from the right side, the penalty of the evil would be harsh, or according to what you have done. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So they're both operating. They're both operate. In the right side, it both operates from the right. From the right, the good and the evil operates from the right and from the left. Your act could be a good act consciously. Your act could be a bad act, an evil act consciously. The body could be doing something good based upon the right side of the spiritual thing. The body could be doing a bad act based upon the right side of the spiritual thing. And the same for the left. The left can do a good act, the left can do a bad act. All bad acts, we cannot contribute to the left side, to the subconscious, to the intuitive, the unawareness. No. But there are good acts that comes from the left side. When they say, we have heard the caller calling us to faith, and we have faith. That's coming, our faith is coming from the left side. And it's a good act coming from the left side. But just as you are not punished, by the left side, then to be just, you can't be rewarded by the left side. It's not right to punish you, let the punishment go on the left side, but the reward, you're not rewarded for the left side. Where is this logic? Where is this at? I'm still speaking from the logic of Imam W. Muhammad. Now, if you make me go and find it and write it down before you accept it, you have to pay me. And you have to pay me well. What you pay the big professors. But if you have experienced the Imam, then you're okay because you know you can hear where I'm coming from. Now, the Quran, the logic. Those who are given their deeds, they're given a book, the book of deeds. And if you're given your book in your left hand, you got a whole stack of dockets stacked to the ceiling of deeds that you have committed from the left side. There are no rewards. You don't get the reward for that. You benefit from it, yes, but you don't get the reward. But the deeds, and we're saying good deeds in your left hand. They're all good deeds. Here you come with a book full of good deeds in your left hand, and you want reward. You want redemption. No, you don't get that. You get mercy. You get mercy for it. That's a mercy you may get, but you don't get that rahim. You don't get that special mercy. You don't get that special redemption that the believer gets. You don't get that. But when you come with the book full of deeds in the right hand, because they are what? From conscious acts, then you're given reward 10 times, many times, quadruple, double, for the reward of the right hand. Because those are your conscious acts. And whatever wrong you have done that's in the book of deeds on your right hand, then you're punished for that. We say, whatever you've done from the deeds, from the book of deeds on your left hand, you're not punished, nor are you rewarded. So now I'm giving a hint. If I want to draw this out, we could talk about when we came into Islam under the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We were operating more from the left than from the right because we didn't have the knowledge and evidence. You go to court, if you went to the Islamic court, they say, yes, good acts. You have done wonderful things in bringing about a reformed socialization of the African American. But many of you want to punish, if they're not Muslim. They going to hell, so forth and so on. Yes, we can elaborate on it. But you were just you were just a shadow. You were just a black man. That was the black man, the shadow, without the true reality. The shadow doesn't act on its own. We get into that. So you see that part. That's the right and the left. So the good and the bad, we're saying, can come from the right. The good and the bad can come from the left. It's not the good comes from the right and the bad comes from the left. Then we say sujadan lillahi. Another part, another bracket now. Another bracket. When he says sujadan, he's speaking now. Let's go back up so you can see what is he talking about. So we're connecting all of this now. We're connecting it as we go. If you can hold it in your mind, it's a lot. See how much one verse can say a lot if you're trying to connect all of this with Ibn Arabi and the Imam as you're going. Then you're going to get to this part here, sujadan. Sujadan lillahi. That's what we're talking about now. Everything that he's going to comment on is going to be in this bracket. He's not jumping to us, but he's connecting it all, but we want to stay with this bracket. What does this mean by sujadan lillahi based upon the teaching, the writing, the mind of Ibn Arabi? And then we look at the mind of Imam W.D. Muhammad. So sujadan lillahi says munqadatan. Munqadatan is a word also for submissive. So when it says sujadan, we know what sajda is, but sajda, again, it's an act. Sajda is a ritual act. But the meaning of sajda is submission. Bi amrihi, by his command, with his command, according to his command, its command. I'm going to say its command, because we're talking about shadows, we're talking about the true reality. Now this is to Allah, sujadan lillahi. Yes, even if we're talking about the true reality, submitting to Allah. Munqadatan. But we're gonna look at the logic when we're talking about those two things. Mitwa'atan is a word we would say also for submission or obedience and obedience. La tamtani'u amma yuridu fiha. Mitwa'atan means in obedience, in terms of obedience. Another word for sujad. He's talking about sujadan again. He's saying munqadatan and mitwa'atan. And it's meaning that there is nothing that is preventing, it is not being prevented from what he desires in it. Now, let's go back. Let's look at the bracket now. Remember, we're talking about two things now. So far, we're talking about the shadows, and we're talking about the true reality of the shadows. And the act of the shadow, and the act of the true reality that's governing the shadow. Because the true reality that governs the shadow. Let's go back. Here's another example. I'll bring it up Tuesday. Other examples of the true reality, the act of the true reality, and the act of the shadow. Know the difference. Now here, we're saying we bring it to sujadan lillahi now. So now, that spiritual thing, the spiritual thing, really, and the shadow, all of it, in submission to Allah, and nothing is preventing it. Nothing is preventing it from what he desires in it. Looking back at these two words. But we have to keep in the idea, the concept, the idea here. Now, one thing I want to mention, and I mentioned this before, when you get into this type of thinking and this type of reasoning, this type of study, when you start studying people like Ibn Arabi and other philosophers, so there are some people that may put Ibn Arabi under the category of a Sufi. I don't know if he was a Sufi or not. But when they talk about the Sufis, you may bring up Ibn Arabi, and there are other Sufis. And we're talking about before Sufism became so described by mysticism. But before you get into this type of thinking, you have to be sure to have one thing, and that is tanzihun, meaning that you're not making any anthropomorphic forms, figures, representations of Allah. Nothing that you see as created can you associate with Allah. You have to have that first, because sometimes language itself, when we're trying to express high spiritual ideas, language may get in the way. Then the next thing you know, you're accusing people like Ibn Arabi and others of committing shirk, which they're not doing. It's because perhaps you're not clear on the language. The language is not making it clear. Just as we have reward and punishment, we have forgiveness, mercy and forgiveness. Okay. So that is to say, now he's talking about sujadan lillahi. Just as the shadows. See, the shadow obeys. The shadow is obedient. The shadow is submissive. Looking at what we're talking about. Reflecting now. They are submissive to the malakut, to the governing body. And the governing body, the governing entity, is the spiritual invisible entity. The shadow does whatever it desires in that thing. It obeys. It's not prevent. Nothing can prevent it from obeying. I'm sure as a kid, you move your arm, you're looking at your shadow, you see you move, the shadow moves. You move your arm, the arm of the shadow moves. The shadow does whatever you do. And maybe as a kid, you probably tried to move your hand so fast that you would go faster than the shadow. The shadow is right there. It obeys. Yes. So is it right to punish the shadow? A note for Tuesday. Now, just as the shadow obeys its spiritual counterpart, the spiritual counterpart should have the same obedience for Allah. Don't get caught up in shirk. Don't pass shirk into this. I'm not going to say it anymore. I'm going to say that much. Get the point. You will understand what I'm saying. Any more, language may get in the way. But we're to be obedient. Our true reality should obey Allah like our shadows obey us. That's what I'm saying. Sujadan lillahi. And nothing should prevent us from obeying Allah. And every individual has the capacity and the regulation to obey Allah, whether it's obeying from the right or the left. That is to say, يتحرك هياكله إلى جهات الأفعال الخيرية والشرية بأمره. Meaning its skeleton, its body moves. It moves to the direction of acts, good and evil. It moves to that by the command of the true reality, the real self. The body only moves in accordance to, in obedience to what its master, what its true self has governed it to do, good and bad. You see how we come here, good and bad. It's actions, good and bad. It's good and bad actions. It's from that side, whatever side. Yes. So, let's go to, you will hear the prophet, the saying of the prophet in it, and the logic of Imam W.D. Muhammad. Reflecting again. So, we have the janazah or the funeral. And there's a hadith, not quoting, just giving the hadith, that there was a funeral procession, passing by, and the person who had passed away, they say, was Jewish. And the prophet stood for the procession, the body as it goes by. He stood for the procession. That much I'm going to give. Now, why did he stand for the body if the body was the Jewish body? The body itself, the hayakil, I think it's hayakil. I believe it's hayakil. We'll fix it. The skeleton, it doesn't move on its own. It only moves by the command of the hakika, the true reality, the true thing. Yes. So the body is not Jewish. The body is only Jewish because the true being, the true existing being, moved it to be Jewish. It did Jewish rituals because it was commanded to do the Jewish rituals. The body is Muslim, not that the body is Muslim. We're talking about the small limb. The body is Muslim. No, the body is Muslim only because it's being commanded by the true being to be Muslim. So he's not standing for the Jewish person, the Jewish, that true reality is no longer present governing the body. We pray for it. See, we don't pray for the body. Why would the body need prayer? The body was obedient. The body is perfectly obedient. The same obedience that we find in the body, we should have for Allah. The same obedience the shadow has for us, we should have for Allah. So why punish the shadow? Why call the shadow Jewish? The shadow is not Jewish. The shadow is not Muslim. The shadow is not Christian. The shadow is only that was given to it by its owner. So he stood for the body because the body was so obedient to its Lord. And its Lord is the hakika that existed in it. It did not act on its own. Yes, it was obedient. I hope you understand. Yes. Good acts, bad acts. The body you can't charge the body for the acts. And if the I'll leave it at that because we'll draw it out. So that's a ritual. And when we do rituals, there's a body of knowledge that goes with the ritual. So that's a ritual. In Christianity, when you go to the funeral and the body, they're taking the body and they're forming the procession, the family stands and follows behind the body and everybody stands. When the body is moving back, everybody stands because the body is so obedient. When we have the janazah, the Muslim, when we have the janazah prayer, we don't make prostration. We don't sit. We stand. We stand for the body, not the person. It's the body we're standing for because the body was so obedient. And that's the obedience. That's a sign of the obedience that we should have for Allah. Sujadan lillahi. Yes. Conscious acts, unconscious acts, putting it all together. And we have rituals. There are many rituals that we have that I could go through that would be expressing this body of knowledge. And the last part, he's saying that they are submissive, by whom they ask on as we go. I think enough has been presented for today. I thank you for your time. Assalamu alaikum.